Hello and welcome in to Off the Bench. It is Friday here in the Queen City. I'm Reed Mouse. Stone Shields, the producer to my left. We've got a show for you today. We do have a show for you today, and it'll be a fun one. We're gonna have Craig Sandlin later on to talk just some Bengals. But Stone Shields, sorry we're a little late today. We had to get things in order. We were talking a lot of ball. And to be honest, if I'm being honest with you, I wish I had a better excuse for why we are late on today's show. But the reason is we were talking a lot of ball, and Stone was he was pleading his case on why batting average is the end-all, be-all stat in the world of baseball. But Stone, thank you so much for being here today. You're fighting hard for batting average on off air.
Yeah, look, I understand all the people that know baseball a lot more than I do, certainly here at this company specifically, or, they're out completely on batting average. I understand much of the... You are out completely.
Not completely.
Yes, completely.
Not completely out. I am not. It has its place. It should be taken into account, but it shouldn't be like a first five thing that you look at. But go on.
Okay. Yeah, so we were going down the list, and you were like, all right, I'm going to give you the top 10 guys in batting average in the NL. And you were trying to make the point that they all were just a bunch of bums, but Trey Turner was on the top of that list, and there was lots of other really good players on that list there as well. So
in my efforts, so here's exactly what happened. And we're going to get into the show eventually, but it got a little contested. It got a little contested in here. So in my efforts to prove that batting average isn't the end-all, be-all stat, I took the top 10 names from National League batting average leaders and compared it to the top 10 list of on-base percentage. So I'll do it. This is great audio. This is great for the show. I'm going to do it for you guys right here. And you tell me which list is better. You tell me which list of 10 players is better. We'll start with batting average. Trey Turner, great player. Nico Horner, love him. Freddie Freeman, Luis Arraez, Geraldo Perdomo, Alec Burleson, Sal Frelick, Bryce Terang, Brendan Donovan, and Alec Bohm. All good players. Some great players. Freddie Freeman's a Hall of Famer. Nico Horner's one of the easiest guys to root for in the league. That's a list of really good players, no doubt about it. But let's see how it compares to the list of on-base percentage leaders from this year in the National League. We'll do Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, Geraldo Perdomo, Kyle Tucker, Ketel Marte, Fernando Tatis, Freddie Freeman, Jake Cronenworth, Matt Olson, and Kyle Schwarber. Of course, we know that one list is drastically better than the other. I never called them bums. Luis Arraez might be a bum, but I never called him bum, Stone. Don't put those words in my mouth.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. But it's fun to look. Because I just remember as a kid playing baseball. Obviously, I didn't play at college level, right? I didn't continue playing after high school like you, but I was always, now I understand as a kid you're not tracking all the stats, but I was always worried about what's my batting average, right? So this was hanging around 200, that wasn't good. We need to get that thing up to 300. So, I guess Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman, they're just, the Brewers, they were pretty good this year, weren't they? In the regular season?
They were.
Yeah.
They put the ball in play. There's no doubt about it. Listen, part of the reason that when you're a kid, that batting average reigns supreme over other stats is because quite point blank, it's an easy stat to calculate. So it is like, hey, how many at-bats did you have? How many hits did you have? This is what you're hitting. It's easy to calculate. You don't, I mean, not that on-base percentage or slugging percentage is all that hard, but you're not dealing with WAR. You're not dealing with runs created plus. You're not dealing even with OPS plus. Like, you're not dealing with those things just because it's the easiest thing. So I get it. Batting average for 100. The game started in the 1860s. The National League was formed in the 1860s. For about 150 years, if you wanted to talk about how good of a hitter someone was, you'd bring up they hit 300. They hit 315 this past year. They did all those things. But I did want to talk about Major League Baseball because I get it. My friends make fun of me often. You guys in the chat make fun of me often because I talk about Shohei Ohtani quite a bit. He is what I think is the greatest, or not the right word. He is the most talented person that has ever graced this earth to play baseball. We have never seen someone, in really any sport, to be honest with you, but especially baseball where there are these finite skills, we have never seen someone do what Shohei Ohtani is doing right now. And last night, he won his 4th unanimous MVP. That puts him second all-time in MVP awards, trailing only the great Barry Bonds, who had 7. He is second all-time in MVP awards. That is more than Mickey Mantle. That is more than Albert Pujols. That is more than Alex Rodriguez. That is more than Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Yogi Berra, Derek Jeter, who had 0. That's Stone's favorite guy. All these guys, Shohei Ohtani has more MVP awards than him. And what we are seeing before our eyes, if you are a baseball fan, it's incredibly annoying that he got paid $1 billion and it all got deferred to go play for the biggest market, or not the biggest team. The Yankees are still a bigger team, but the second biggest team and the biggest payroll in baseball. Undoubtedly annoying. But there is a reason why baseball, which is undoubtedly in a better spot today in terms of their market viability than they were in 2015. It's two-pronged. It is one, they had sweeping changes to the game that was being played. They had sweeping changes to the game that was being played. The pitch clock, the 3-batter rule, the Manfred runner in extra innings. All of those rules are sweeping changes and have made the game more exciting. And on top of that, they have a catalyst, a true catalyst in the form of Shohei Ohtani, who has come from Japan, has made the game global once again, although it already was global, and has entered the imagination and minds of people from around the world. And baseball, which it'll never topple football once again. It'll never topple college football or the NFL. That is long gone. But there is legitimate reason to think that this is the second biggest sport, or I guess if you count college football, is the third biggest sport in this country. And a big portion is that the greatest player that I've ever seen, the most talented player that I've ever seen play the game, is playing for one of the biggest brands. Oh, yeah, and also in New York, you have Aaron Judge, who just got his 3rd MVP, tying a myriad of first ballot inner circle Hall of Famers for 3 MVPs. And he's playing for the New York Yankees. It sucks. I get it. It's not a whole lot of fun for the guys like the Cincinnati Reds fans here in town, or the Cleveland Indians fans, Cleveland Guardians, apologies, Detroit Tigers, all those teams. It's not great, but it is putting Major League Baseball in a different stratosphere when it comes to marketability. It is rising. What's the cliche? High tides raises all ships.
Yes.
And that is exactly what's happening. And it is being performed by the catalyst that is Shohei Ohtani. When I was a kid, I never understood that why when kids got into high school, there'd be some great shortstop. And he has a cannon. But for some reason, the high school team never pitched him. God, he's a shortstop. We can't pitch him. We can't do it. You get into college. Team's struggling to throw strikes, and you're like, well, we have these guys that I think they can throw strikes. I know they play center field. I know they catch. I know they play shortstop, whatever it is. They never did that, and I never understood. There had to have been somewhere along the way in Major League Baseball guys that could play 2 ways. But for some reason, it never happened because they had to focus on one thing, and most of the time it's because the game is so gosh darn hard that it takes a lot of time to devote to be perfect at one or the other, or really good at one or the other, that there just wasn't talented players enough to do both ways. And here we have a guy that has now won his 4th MVP in 5 seasons, all unanimous. And he was a top 5 vote getter in Cy Young Award one year. He's one of the hardest throwers in the league. He's one of the best base stealers in the league. And we've never seen it happen before, but there's no reason for me to believe that if he took the field, if he had to wear a glove out there and play center field, he wouldn't be one of the best center fielders in the league. So I guess you can call it glazing. I guess you can, whatever the kids say, hyping him up. I'm just calling it like I see it. And Shohei Ohtani is the most talented baseball player I've ever seen. And as a baseball fan, I absolutely adore the fact that I'm living in an era where I get to watch him play. Because growing up, when I'm studying these backs of baseball cards, and I'm reading myths about how Mickey Mantle once hit one out of Yankee Stadium, and Satchel Paige used to tell the entire outfield, hey, go in the dugout, I got this one. Or the Babe Ruth at Wrigley Field calling his shot in the 1930 World Series. I used to romanticize being able to see that kind of history. I listened to my dad talk about how great Johnny Bench and Pete Rose and Joe Morgan were. I never got to see him play. I got to see the end of Barry Bonds. I got to see the end of Sammy Sosa, who was my favorite baseball player of all time. I got to see the end of those guys, but I used to romanticize being able to see the greatest players of all time play. And here I am. We're right in the middle of watching what could go down as the greatest baseball player ever. And in fact, if you had me put hard-earned dollars on it, I would put money that when it's all said and done, he will be the greatest baseball player of all time. He won't have 760 home runs like Barry Bonds. He won't have 4,700 strikeouts like Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson, or 5,700 strikeouts like Nolan Ryan. He won't, he won't have 1,400 stolen bases like Ricky Henderson. What I anticipate he will do is he'll have more Kennesaw Mountain Landis awards on his, that's the name of the MVP trophy. He'll have more of those than any player that we've ever seen. In a time where the game is getting harder and harder to play, he's doing this. More guys throwing 100 miles an hour. I remember reading the back of a baseball card in 2006. Relief pitcher for the Detroit Tigers, a name you guys have probably never heard of, Joel Zumaya. He set the then MLB record for most pitches thrown over 100 miles an hour at 36. I saw a stat yesterday that there were 5 guys in Major League Baseball that threw over 200 pitches over 100 miles an hour last year. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible what we're seeing from Shohei Ohtani. And I'm delighted to continue to watch it. Stone, as someone who, you love baseball.
Yeah.
You love it. You love it dearly.
Yeah.
Are you tired of the Shohei stuff yet? I mean, I know he plays for the Dodgers. They're back-to-back champions. He's now won 4 out of the last 5 MVPs, and there is a fatigue that goes with this. We've seen this in the NBA. LeBron James should have won like 12 straight MVPs, more than likely. But are you getting any fatigue of the Shohei stuff?
He's great. I'm not going to sit here and deny it. Kind of got bailed out by his buddy Yamamoto in Game 7, but that's all right. What did he hit this year? 280, you said? And Judge was like 330?
Yeah.
So you question who's better.
Joey's probably not the best hitter in the league.
Yeah.
Aaron Judge is a better hitter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, but he's great. I'm not going to – it's unfortunate he's on the Dodgers, and he's going to probably continue to win MVP. What's really scary is that from a pitching perspective, like, wasn't that supposed to be, like, his thing? Like, obviously he could hit, but, like, he was supposed to be that guy on the mound too, and obviously he was hurt for a while, and he wasn't really fully himself. Obviously he pitched – he was big for him in the postseason, just, eating up some innings. But, this is a guy that could win the Cy Young too, right?
Yeah. If he gets the chance to win it, the one thing I want for him is I want him to win a Cy Young at some point. When he came into the league back in 2017, he foregone, I forget the exact number, but it was a lot of money which he signed to play baseball in Japan. And typically what has to happen is you have to play 6 years of professional baseball. This is why guys like Ichiro Suzuki didn't come over to Major League Baseball until he was 27. This is why guys like Yamamoto, like those guys, they typically are late. Daisuke Matsuzaka came over when he was 27. They're a little older when they enter Major League Baseball. Shohei Ohtani forfeited that money. He forfeited that money to come over when he was 23 years old. And he had to play on rookie contracts. To come play for the Los Angeles Angels, he made like $5 million on the opening thing. And he could have waited and made, I'll give a random number because I don't have the numbers, $50 million to go play over there in Japan. He said, no, I want to go start a legacy in MLB. And when he got here, there was reports coming out because we heard about this young Babe Ruth of Japan. And everyone gets skeptical, right? I think everyone, whenever there's glowing reports about someone's athleticism, we see this in the NFL draft all the time when people are talking about Caleb Williams being the best prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck. Whenever we see that stuff, we have criticism. We heard it with Wemby. We heard it with Wemby when he came over here. Like, this is the best young player we've seen since LeBron. It's tiring because we know that bar is so high, they're probably not going to get there. So when we hear that there's the LeBron or the Babe Ruth of Japan coming over here, reports come out, scouts, they start interviewing scouts. Hey, what do you see from Shohei Ohtani? I remember I think it was in Sporting News. Sporting News. I don't even know if that's still a publication anymore. One of the oldest sports publications in the world. Sporting News put out an article saying Shohei Ohtani is a Cy Young caliber pitcher. He's got great stuff, but he's a high school level hitter. A high school level hitter just was the first man to go 50-50. A high school level hitter just is on the doorstep of hitting 60 home runs, Shohei Ohtani. It's a little bit of hater. It's a little bit of hater. It's also harder to grade someone's hitting ability as opposed to pitching. Like, you see a dude throw 100 miles an hour with a nasty splitter and a big slider, you're like, all right, yeah, that dude can pitch in the majors. But until you see them, hit against high-level hitting, it's hard to match. And it took him some time. Like, he was Rookie of the Year, but it was, year 4? I think in the COVID season, he wasn't very good at all. So and he comes over in, 2018, 2019, 2020, and then he wins his first MVP in 2021, and the rest is history. But, yeah, it would be, as a fan of his, as a fan of baseball, it'd be awesome to see that when it all comes done. 8 MVPs, 1 Cy Young, triple crown in both pitching and hit. Like, sorry, I get excited about this kind of stuff. Also, Aaron Judge, I mentioned this earlier. He won the MVP in the American League. You asked me if I was surprised that he won it over Cal Raleigh. Before I told you Cal Raleigh's batting average of 247, would you have given it to Cal Raleigh?
No, I was just curious because I know some people out there and on the internet were a little bit frustrated. Maybe that was just coming from the Pacific Northwest, but yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that. Aaron Judge is great. I really hope, I'm not a Yankee fan at all, obviously, but I hope he gets a ring. It's different with baseball, right? It's not like, even if you're like Paul Skeens, for example, who's a phenomenal pitcher, it's not like you're the quarterback of a football team, right? You don't have as much control. And when you're talking about legacy and, the greatest players of all time, it's kind of tough in baseball to say, well, how many World Series did he win? But the Yankees, obviously, they spend a ton of money. I hope Judge gets one. He just seems like a great guy. He's just kind of taken over that Captain America. I think Trout's kind of passed that torch to him. I think he's a great ambassador for the game here in this country. Obviously, Ohtani is from more of an international perspective. But Aaron Judge just seems like a great guy, and he's an unbelievable hitter too as well. At 330, so
Yeah. No, it's. I don't know if I as much as I am happy that Shohei has won back-to-back World Series and he's won all these MVPs, I don't wish Aaron Judge wins a World Series. I don't want the Yankees. I mean, they won. You guys complain about the Dodgers winning back-to-back and doing it the way. There's been 121 World Series given out. 121 World Series given out. The Yankees have won 27 of them. Like, they have won about 1/4. Or over 1/5 of the World Series. And that's including they've only won one in the last 25 years. So the game is never more fair than it is right now. Unfortunately, I mean, you guys can sit here and complain. In terms of championships, like you can say day to day it's not as fair, but in terms of championships, it's never been more fair than it is right now. Because for the first 60 World Series, just the top team in each league made it to the World Series. You didn't have any postseasons. You just played the World Series, and that was that. So that was unfair because that was always the Yankees. And back then they didn't have the draft. So what would they do? Oh yeah, there's this great player out of Oklahoma that's switch hitting and he's this handsome guy and everyone loves him. Hey, what team you want to play for, Mick? Oh, I want to play for the Yankees because they win the World Series every year. And that's how it went. Back in the 40s and the 50s. The best players, as long as you scouted them, as long as you talked to them, as long as you found them, and guys like Mickey Mantle made some noise. Oh, what team you want to play for? You want to go play for the Washington Senators? Or do you want to go play for the New York Yankees and wear pinstripes? Okay, that's how they got guys like Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, and Whitey Ford, and all these guys. That's just what happened back then. Wasn't some mystery success. Like, they just, back before free agency and back before the MLB draft, they just signed the best players because they could, because they were already winning. I want to play for the same team that Babe Ruth played for. I want to play for the same team that Lou Gehrig played for. I want to play for the same team that Joe DiMaggio played for. So I don't wish that Aaron Judge wins an NBA or wins a World Series anytime soon, because I don't like the Yankees all that much. I don't like the Yankees at all. They're my outside of the Cardinals and maybe the Reds. They're probably my least favorite.
I can't believe you come on here and say that.
What? Say that I don't like the Reds?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if you've ever seen the clip of me. Dear Reds fans, I don't know if you've ever seen that throwback clip of Chatterbox Sports content. But, yeah, at one point in time, I came on here and I was like, Dear Reds fans. And I laid out this entire thing about why the Reds were going to be terrible. And they ended up winning like 83 games. That was 2023. The final thing I wanted to say as we transition, we're going to talk about the Bengals. I'm going to have Craig Sandlin on here in a few minutes. I wanted to say something really quickly about the MLS. They made national news yesterday, in the fact that they are going to be changing their schedule. And it's only fair. The only reason I bring this up is because we have killed them on this program. We have killed the MLS schedule for years, because they're taking 2 weeks off for this and they're taking 3 weeks off for this. Heck, they're in the middle of their postseason run right now, and they're not even playing this weekend because they have duties to other teams. Like, what is this sport? And what they've come out said is that they are going to mirror European schedules, and that the schedule will start in the summer and therefore it'll end in the spring. And the reason that this is potentially good is because when most eyeballs are laid on the product in the postseason, same thing that we see in the NHL, same thing we see in the NBA, when things come on, college basketball, same thing. They start early and they end when there's no football. They end when there's no football. And the only thing you have to go up against is the start of baseball and these other championships. So this will get more eyeballs on the sport. It'll be a more congruent schedule, and they're not playing from February to December, because that makes sense. So I think it's going to be good for the sport. Stone, I know we make jokes here all the time on MLS and whatnot, but do you think you'd be more inclined to watch an FCC postseason match if there's no Sunday night football going on, if there's no college football going on? Or do you think you're going to be more inclined to watch it as it currently sits right now, where, they're going to be playing Lionel Messi during the 4 o'clock window next Sunday?
Yeah, I totally would be more inclined if there wasn't that kind of stuff going on. It's competition, right? And, when you have the NFL, you have football. The World Series was going on through, soccer there as well. It's tough when you're not a diehard soccer guy to divert your attention away from those sports and go to soccer. But, I've tried with soccer, and I'll continue to try. With FC Cincinnati, clearly they have a good team. I love Cincinnati, so, maybe I'll tap in. The game is really hard for me to get fired up about. That's just kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I watch the international team, right? I like the camaraderie of that. Like when the Team USA is playing in the World Cup or the Olympics, like that's always exciting. Don't really know what's going on out there on the pitch, but there's just an energy around that's kind of exciting. But I'll give it a try. But yeah, with the competition stuff, like if you're like, you want to watch soccer or NFL football,
right? Yeah, I don't even know who's going to be in the 4 o'clock window, but the Bengals will play the New England Patriots early on in the day, and then you get to see your local team play a postseason match against one of, if not the greatest soccer player of all time, and Lionel Messi. And still we're questioning, are we going to watch that, or are we going to watch the 4 p.m. slate of the NFL? And it's just you can't go toe to toe. Now there's probably better ways to go about it. Maybe play those matches during the week when there's not as much on, and instead of watching the FCC match, you're arguing between watching the FCC match or watching Maction. I think it's undoubtedly going to be a good thing, and I think this is why you pivot to there and you match really what other obviously successful, where there's not as much sports over in Europe. They have one league to kind of rule them all those things. When that comes on, I mean, it's going to be better for the sport, and it's going to get new eyeballs on. It's the same reason they're going to be like this March. There's going to be some great content in between March Madness. Oh, the World Baseball Classic comes back, which they're announcing teams for that. Pete Crow Armstrong on the World Baseball Classic team, so that's exciting. All right, MLS talk, Shohei Ohtani talk. Let's talk about what this program always talks about, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. And we're going to bring on the hardest worker at Chatterbox Sports, Craig Sandlin, to talk about our Cincinnati Bengals. Craig, thank you so much. I think I texted you about 10 minutes before the show started and said, hey, you want to come on and talk Bengals? And I'm so gracious for your time. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the heads up. Gave me a lot of time to do some research, make sure I had all my stats in order for you, Reed. This is going to be a great appearance, let me tell you.
All right, so this weekend, Bengals are 3-6. They go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Last time I talked to you was at the end of Monday. The news comes out. Joe Burrow's coming back. He's going to be practicing, and we're like, all right, I guess we're going for this thing. I guess it's happening. And then you start realizing, okay, well, we've already used the excuses of this is a must-win, and this is a must-win, and this is a must-win. It doesn't make any sense for the Bengals to make the postseason unless they win this game this Sunday. 6-point underdogs, how do you think they get it done?
6-point underdogs. They get it done on offense, just like they have all season long. I mean, it's the only way they've been able to win games so far is just by outscoring people. And I think there's a couple matchups that certainly the Bengals are going to have to figure out. The running game defense has been atrocious. Jalen Warren gashed them for 127 last time. And this Bengals team for years now has not been able to guard a tight end to save their life. Pat Freiermuth went off for 111 and 2 touchdowns against them last time. This Pittsburgh receiving crew is not very deep. So if there is a weakness, it's that tight end spot in terms of the Bengals defense. So they held DK Metcalf in check. They held Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, all these other guys in check. But that tight end position continues to gash them. And Pat Freiermuth did it last time. And who knows, maybe Jonnu Smith will go off this week.
Last time we saw Aaron Rodgers play, not here in Cincinnati, but just the last time that Aaron Rodgers played, I think to characterize it, he looked a little scared at times. He was definitely off. And part of it was because the opposing team got some pressure on him. The Bengals are, of course, going to be without Trey Hendrickson, more than likely going to be without Trey. They're going to be without Trey Hendrickson. And more importantly, so they're going to be without Shamar Stewart this Sunday. Is there any reason to think that the Bengals will be able to generate any pressure and continue to make Aaron Rodgers feel a little uncomfortable in the pocket? Because the boy can still spin.
No. No, not really. I mean, I know a lot of people are high on Antoine Powell-Ryland, who they just signed this past week. I don't really know if we're even going to see him much this week, if at all. They signed him to the practice squad, so we'll see if they elevate him. Certainly with Shamar down, Trey most likely down, it would make a lot of sense to see Antoine Powell-Ryland and let him go and see what him and Cedric Johnson can do. But there's no real indication just yet that that's going to happen. And even if they do, there's a reason that Antoine Powell-Ryland was on the practice squad. There's a reason he was cut from Philadelphia. So we're kind of putting a lot of hope in college production and what we saw from the combine and everything else. But we haven't really had a chance to really know what we got there other than a project and somebody that maybe has some high ceiling, but we don't really know yet. So no, I don't have a whole lot of faith in it. But it'll be interesting to see if Al Golden dials up some unique pressures, tries to get some blitzing going, or if he just sits back and tries to guard the receivers and the tight ends, because it worked so well last time.
Yeah, dude, it feels like we're watching this defense, and it feels like when you're desperate, as this defense is, when you get desperate, you're just like, all right, we got to try something new, right? We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And we had Jay Morrison on earlier this week, and he's talking about how this scheme is so simple because it has to be simple because the players aren't good enough. And I'll just throw up my hands and be like, well, that's not working either. Can we start blitzing like crazy to where, like, hey, if we're gonna give up 560 yards, at least they'll get down the field quicker, and we can get back on offense? Do you think that this is finally a time where Al Golden starts dialing up some pressure, starts dialing up, hey, we're gonna start sending 5-6 guys more often than not, because the 4 guys we're sending is just not getting it done?
I mean, there's no better time than now, right? I mean, your season's on the line. You're coming off of a bye weeks where you had extra time to prepare for unique packages like that. Certainly seems like if it's going to happen, now's the time to do it. The problem and the question is do you have guys that you trust to either be able to get that pressure in the blitz and also on the back end be able to guard long enough to let them get home? And that's the question. You know, you don't have guys like Mike Hilton anymore who were able to perfectly time up his blitz packages to be able to get home so quickly. So yeah, I mean, now's certainly the time to do it if you're going to, but we haven't seen basically any of that so far this year without Golden. Everything's been very vanilla. He's got his little play sheet that's basically a quarter sheet of paper, and that's his entire playbook. And I think most D coordinators are the same way. They don't have a ton of looks, but you know, there's got to be something that allows them to kind of create some pressure on an Aaron Rodgers and force him to get rid of this ball sooner than later, because otherwise he's going to gash you down the field with guys like Freiermuth and DK Metcalf.
Are you worried at all that Joe Flacco isn't going to play on Sunday? Like, is that work? Because I before we got on the show, I was just like, are we? Because I know he's had some updates. I know he's thrown a few times. Are you worried at all about Joe Flacco not playing this Sunday? No. Okay. No.
I mean, he had the bye week. He was as far as I know, he practiced yesterday. I saw a video of him out there throwing. No, but
okay.
I'll turn around and say, as crazy as it may sound, I'm not going to be shocked if Joe Burrow tries to come back for New England next week. I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily the plans right now, but
it's not the plan. Why do you think that?
It's not. I know Joe Burrow, at least from what I've seen, and if he's healthy, he's going to want to be out there. And everything we've seen, from reports from practices to videos from practices to everything in between, he seems to be moving okay. He's obviously throwing the ball okay. I just think that he's going to want to force his way out there sooner than later. And I think he knows that the clock is ticking. And even though he's not a linebacker or safety, as a lot of people like to point out on social media, he's still the heartbeat of this team and the leader of this team. And I think that his goal is going to be to get out there as soon as he can. And I think that he knows that this is a pivotal stretch for this team. And that's why he had it circled early on for his return, was to try and get back for that Thanksgiving game against the Ravens. But I think he's seen how things have gone. And I think that he knows that he's got to do everything in his power to get back. And that may mean coming back even ahead of schedule beyond what he thought he was going to be able to do. And it's crazy to say that he might be back next week, but I for one, am not going to be shocked if it happens, just because I think that's the type of competitor that Joe Burrow is. And even though Joe Flacco has played out of his mind, even though the offense has certainly found its groove with Joe Flacco behind center, I just think that Joe Burrow is going to want to go out there and do what Joe Burrow does. And that means that he's going to be playing. And a lot of the conversations we've had, Reed, is going to be, what, if anything, has Zach Taylor learned from the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, in terms of this offense and its efficiency in terms of the run game and going under center and play action. I'm on the optimistic side. I think Joe Burrow's coming back next week because I'm crazy.
Right.
And on the other side, I think that Zach Taylor's going to revert right back to that 95% shotgun look, not running the ball, not doing what's been working for them on offense over the last several weeks. And we're all going to be sitting here questioning a lot of decisions.
There's a lot of things that you could say about you believing that Joe Burrow might play next Sunday. Optimistic is one of them. There's also some other things you can say about it. Let me ask you this, because me and Stone have been.
Look,
been
I have no reason to actually believe that that's going to happen, but I'm just sitting here looking at the situation that we're in with this season, the way that I know Joe Burrow is a little wacko in the head, and I just wouldn't be surprised if he tries to come back next week.
I hear you. Let me ask you this then. It's undoubted he's coming back at some point this season. Like, he's doing that. Like, he is going to play regardless of the outcome. As a fan, they lose this Sunday. He doesn't play next week, as you think that he might. He doesn't play next week. They lose to the Patriots. They're 3-8 going into Thanksgiving. Do you want him to play? Do you want him to play the rest of this schedule? He's going to. He's going to play when he's healthy and can. Do you want him to if they're 3-8?
Not really. I mean,
thank you.
The thing is, like, I think that if we're truly being honest with ourselves, Reed, is that whether we like it or not, Joe Burrow has earned the injury-prone tag.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
The only thing you're doing by putting him out there with a 3-8 team with 6 weeks left to play in the season is risking an injury. And the last thing you need as the Cincinnati Bengals is to risk Joe Burrow not being healthy for spring next year or for training camp next year and then being set back yet again. And, you know, we've had this conversation. I think it's perfectly within reason to think that if Joe Burrow doesn't play, because the Bengals are so far out of it, which I don't think is going to happen, that they continue to falter. They end the season with 4 to 6 wins, and Zach Taylor is not your head coach next year. And what happens if Joe Burrow tries to come back? He gets hurt. He misses out on an entire offseason with a new coaching staff trying to learn a new offense. And now all of a sudden you're coming into next season, a season that yet again is going to be labeled as a season that you should be Super Bowl contenders, regardless of how this year goes. And you're doing it without your star quarterback being there for training camp because he got hurt in a meaningless season. I mean, we just watched Jaden Daniels go down with a significant elbow injury 2 weeks ago in a game where he had no business being in it.
Correct.
We see it all the time where guys get hurt in meaningless games. And whether we like it or not, Joe Burrow has a responsibility to this team long term to make sure that he is healthy to be their quarterback. And I don't know that doing that in a 3-8 loss season makes a ton of sense.
Thank you. You hear that, Stone? This guy's got some sense to him. He's got some sense to him. And listen, I understand.
That doesn't mean that he's not going to play, though, Reed. That's the difference.
He's going to
play.
He's going to play, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just straight up doesn't, and I can't get it beyond my brain that we have this guy. You said it. I've been saying it. Anyone that doesn't think that Joe Burrow is injury prone, you're living in a land, or you're taking in full advantage of the decriminalized marijuana here in Ohio, because you're living at a high that I can't get to. Because he is, just point blank, he is. And I want to protect him with every bone in my body, because I don't know how many bones I can see him break before my brain breaks. So I'm with you 100%. If we lose these games, I don't want him to play. He's going to play, so why do I keep bringing it up? Because I think it's just lunacy on a team that's full of lunacy, in an organization that's full of lunacy. It's just another case point of, all right, well, we're doing this again. And I want to say this, and I don't know who I'm saying it to. I guess we know who I'm saying it to, because he sits to my left in the studio here, and he's been beating the drum that he wants him to play. If the Bengals are 3-8, and Joe Burrow comes back in December for that Thanksgiving game on, and he gets hurt in one of those games, I want an I'm sorry. I want an I'm sorry from those people that wanted him to come back and play, because we all know it doesn't make a lick of sense, Craig.
Yeah, here's the only thing that I'll follow that comment up with, is that the one positive of him coming back and playing, if we want to call it a positive, that I truly believe that Joe Burrow has a lot he can learn from Joe Flacco. And I do think that the one place you can learn that is in game situations. And I'm hoping that Zach Taylor has learned a lot from Joe Flacco. I'm hoping that Joe Burrow on the sidelines has learned from Joe Flacco. And I'm hoping that this offense can adjust and evolve in a way that they've seen Joe Flacco be uber successful over the last several weeks, and say, okay, look, we have an opportunity to continue to be good. We have an opportunity to protect Joe Burrow. Here's how we do it. And it's by running. It's by Joe Burrow being a little bit better pre-snap by recognizing blitz packages and recognizing coverages and understanding where his reads are. I don't think that Joe Burrow is necessarily bad at that, but I do think that there's been, for years now, there's been opportunities where Joe Burrow could put himself in better places where maybe he's not necessarily doing that because of his faith in his ability to make plays. And that's where the kind of challenge comes from, is that we've seen him make incredible plays by scrambling and trying to get away and waiting for receivers to get open and not taking your check downs and not throwing the ball away. But we've also seen him get hurt over and over again because of it. And so at some point, every great quarterback learns to take what the defense gives you and live for another down. And I think if anything right now, that's Joe Burrow's weakness. And I think we've seen from Joe Flacco time and time again that he's more than willing to take whatever the defense gives him and live for another down. And I hope that that message is being passed along to Zach Taylor and to Joe Burrow. And that hopefully as Joe Burrow continues to age, because remember, he was old coming out of college to begin with, that hopefully he can take that to heart and we can see a Joe Burrow that maybe is a little bit more conservative. Some people may say that's not a good thing, but for me, I think he's one of the most accurate passers in the NFL. I think that when he's healthy, he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think that ultimately the best way to make sure that he's on the field as much as possible is for him to be a little bit less careless when it comes to those situations.
And he pretty clearly has really good weapons around him that can get open with ease very early in a play to where he can. And I'll say this: I've got a point about what you said about Joe Flacco, but before I get there, have you ever been a financial advisor, Craig?
Have I ever been a financial advisor?
Yeah. No, right?
No.
Neither have I, but I've heard the phrase.
I have a financial advisor.
I've heard the phrase risk assessment, and I'm going to try and butcher it right here. And you're right that there is something small to gain. You are right that there is something that he can learn from Joe Flacco and to improve his game. But before Joe Flacco even stepped foot here in Cincinnati in the Paycor Stadium on the Bengals sideline, Joe Burrow was already an elite quarterback. Yeah, there's room to grow. Yeah, there's room to get better. But the risk of him getting hurt again and shortening his career already drastically beyond what we've already seen with all the injuries, the amass of injuries, that greatly outweighs the pros of him learning from Joe Flacco. But I will say this. Sometimes strength can come out of weakness. Sometimes you can gain strength out of weakness. That's Joe Flacco's game. Joe Flacco fully understands when he drops back, when he's playing quarterback, he cannot escape a sack. He cannot get around it. He knows he has to get rid of the ball. He has to read the defenses to be successful in this league. That is a weakness of his, that he cannot escape a sack. He is not mobile enough, and it has become a strength in his game by being able to read defenses and deliver strikes. Joe Burrow doesn't have that weakness. He can escape a sack from time to time. He does have that mobility. But he can learn that strength the same way that Joe Flacco is. So I understand what you're saying, and I do think that there is a possibility for Joe Burrow to learn that. But when it comes to risk assessment here, I want to take the easy side. And, hey, it's 3-8. Let's protect our $250 million quarterback with everything we've got. But they won't. He's going to play.
What happens when they win this weekend?
Well, then I want him to play. I want him to play. Yeah, if they are 3-0 in the AFC North, and even if they're 4-7 going into that Thanksgiving game against the Baltimore Ravens, I want Joe Burrow to play because there is some hope still alive. But when hope's not there, I'm out. I'm out on him playing. But I'm also yelling at the wall because no one's listening, and he's going to play once he's healthy because Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin are fighting for their job, because this Bengals team needs to get people in the stadium so they can make more money. Because of all those things, they have too much tied up into Joe Burrow. But I would also argue that it's probably a more advantageous long-term goal of keeping him healthy in terms of financial situation. Craig, thank you so much for coming on here on such short notice. I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
All right.
See you then.
Yeah, Bengals watch along this Sunday. Thanks, Craig. He agrees with me, Stone. Some would say that he has some sense. He has some sense when it comes to Joe Burrow not playing if they go down the next 2 games?
I just don't. I'm at a loss, honestly. I'm at a loss. This isn't a situation where, he's 50%. Let's rush him back. The doctors, they don't know if it's the right move, but let's bring him back to go play. I'm just saying, if he is cleared to go, if he is borderline 100% ready to go, why in the world would he not play? Why in the world would he not play?
Because you know why, Stone.
Why?
Because he has a chance of getting hurt again. And
so we're
going to
do this every year. Every time the Bengals lose some games, and you know what, they're probably out of it, we'll sit him down. Just go sit on the bench. We'll bring in another guy. We're going to do this every year.
Honestly, Stone, if they are 1-7, yeah, sit him down.
Sit him down every year.
But if there's chances to make the postseason, you play him.
Yeah.
You play him.
Yeah. A guy that is healthy, you don't want to play. The best player on your team that is healthy, you don't want him to play.
Because there's nothing to gain from him.
That's not true
playing.
at all. That's not true at all.
What does he have to gain?
He can get better. Every rep counts. Burrow says that all the time. You want more games under your belt? You kidding me?
Risk assessment. Risk
Every
assessment.
time he takes the field. It's no different than week 1 next year. Every time Joe Burrow takes the field, we're all going to be like, you know what?
No, you're right. We are always
every
going
time.
to be worried about that. The difference is when they're 0-0, I'm okay with taking the risk of Joe Burrow playing football and him getting hurt because we have something to play for. When they're 3-8, there's nothing to play for, so why would we play him?
To get better.
To get better.
To get better.
Well, I hope this show gets better at some point. Just teasing. Just teasing. Craig, thank you so much for joining on. We will be doing the Bengals watch along this Sunday here on Chatterbox Sports. I'll be doing the watch along. Craig will be there. I don't know what other characters we'll have on the post game, halftime, and pregame show, but that's always a lot of fun. And hopefully the Bengals game is a lot of fun this Sunday as they tee off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tough sledding, as a host that once sat in this chair said. Anytime you play Mike Tomlin in the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know, man. I know he practiced yesterday, and maybe I'm just too jaded at this point from what I've seen from the Bengals, and that's a good way to describe me, as jaded from what I've seen from the Cincinnati Bengals this season. That I just feel like I'm going to wake up on Sunday and get the push notification. Joe Flacco not active against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jake Browning to start, and we're just sitting here just like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? But he'll probably play. He'll probably play. I hope Joe Flacco continues. I hope he's back on this team next year because the same reasons that you guys so beautifully illustrated, that he can teach stuff to Joe Burrow, and that's getting rid of the ball quickly. As I mentioned, that's a strength of Joe Flacco's that has come from a weakness. Joe Burrow can't escape the pocket, but you've got to teach him, like, hey, that's not always the best thing. Just run the play quick, get it out of there. You see this so often with young quarterbacks anytime they get a new OC. They played in college. I saw this with Baker Mayfield with the Cleveland Browns. When he was in college, he was one of the better athletes on the field. And he could scramble around. He could move. He could, pick up 12 yards if they needed 12 yards. He gets in the NFL. He's not that same athlete. He's not as good as the defenses in the NFL, and he had to learn that. And it took some time to learn that. Caleb Williams, the Chicago Bears, he's kind of blossoming into a really good quarterback. He was so much more talented than all the defenses in the Pac-12 when he played for USC, that he could pretty much, if they needed him to be superhero on any given play, he could probably get that done more often than not. You get in the NFL, that's not the case. Yeah, there's times where you need to unleash that talent. Yeah, there's times where you need Josh Allen to unleash that talent. Yeah, there's times where you need Patrick Mahomes to be this playground player. And there's times where you're going to need Joe Burrow to do it too. But based off of your health history and based off of the talent you have around you, and I'm looking at both the offensive line, which struggles when Joe Burrow is running around and taking shotgun snaps, and the wide receivers that can get open at a moment's notice and have flourished over the past few weeks with Joe Flacco. You've got to be able to read that and say, all right, we're just gonna stay. We're just gonna play right in this thing. Get it to Jamar Chase 10 times a game. Get it to T. Higgins 4 or 5 times a game, and we'll work from there. We'll work from there. I completely forgot about how badly the Pittsburgh Steelers tight ends torched us. What was the worst touchdown this year? I mean, obviously the one Colston Loveland.
Yeah.
won them the game.
Yeah.
But that Pat Fryermuth touchdown is honestly a worse play. It might have been a worse play from our defense and deep in the game. How have we done this 2 different times where we've let an athletic, admittedly an athletic, but an athletic tight end go for 60 yards in crunch time? I mean, this defense, brother. I don't. Which one's the worst play?
I think actually the worst play is probably the Pittsburgh one, but we don't really have bad memories associated with it because the Bengals obviously went on a game-winning drive and won the game. But just what the linebackers were doing there, like letting a tight end get behind you like that, like the one thing. You want a 10, 15-yard completion in front of you? Fine, have it. But getting behind the second level of the defense and then whatever the heck the safeties were doing on that play, I'm not quite sure, other than not doing their job. But yeah, I feel like technically that one's probably worse, but obviously the feeling associated with the Bears one was just devastating.
Do you think we'll see a normal game this Sunday?
What do you mean by normal?
I mean, just like a 27, 24.
No.
Maybe one turnover each way. There's no 75-yard touchdown. There's no 7 lead changes. We'll just see a normal football game. You think we got that in our bag?
Would not say that. I haven't checked the weather, which always in Pittsburgh. That's always something to keep an eye on.
It's supposed to be warm here in Cincinnati, and I imagine their climate's similar.
Okay, yeah, and sometimes you get the wind going at Paycor Stadium, but those 2 quarterbacks with their arms really shouldn't be a factor. But I mean, everything would tell you that this is going to be a shootout.
You went to the UC game earlier this week. You're going to next Friday. You going to the Steelers game this Sunday?
No, I won't be there, but we'll continue to go to all the UC games. But
Fair enough. You ever been to Pittsburgh?
Driven through it, but I've never been. I would like to go to the Pirates Stadium, right? Their ballpark.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's actually, I mean, as much as we hate Pittsburgh, it's actually a pretty cool little town.
Yeah.
I've also said that about Cleveland. We hate Cleveland. I think Cleveland's pretty cool. Maybe I'm just easy. Maybe I just got a really low bar. I mean, I do speak highly of my hometown of Hamilton, so maybe my bar is pretty low. Stone, thank you so much for being here today. I know we had a late start, guys, but we have to get into any guests today on the Stone Shield Show.
No guests today. We'll do our usual Friday show. Hopefully we can get some guests next week. You getting another? I know you were happy the McRib was back and you were eating one for lunch yesterday. Are you going to run that back today or no?
Have you ever had the McRib?
Once. I had to try it, right? I had to try it. I tried it once in college and yeah. I mean, it wasn't
it's
good,
not terrible.
But we know. Yeah. I saw you chowing down on it yesterday, but yeah.
The McRib is kind of a nasty looking thing. I mean, this show. There is one, and I'm Catholic, so I love fish sandwiches. If you eat a fillet of fish, I can't help you. I mean, those things are disgusting. They're the worst. I borderline hate people that like fillet of fishes. Borderline hate them because they are disgusting, and there are so much better options. I mean, we're a few months away from Lent, but stay away from McDonald's, McRibs, and fillet of fishes this weekend, Stone. I know you're a big foodie. Stone is a big foodie. I order food here at lunch, and he checks it out. He's like, "Oh, that looks good. I'm gonna get it too." Stone, have a good show. See you guys later on. We're gonna do box lunch for the members. We're having a good little Friday, and had fun today. See you guys.
All right, here we go. Welcome into the Stone Shield Show. We are here on a Friday, just about another week in the books. Appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out with us here on the channel. We've had a great week here this week at the show. Had some great guests. Mark Sheldon, he stopped by, MLB.com. Gabby Sorrentino stopped by yesterday, Fox 19. Both of those interviews are up on YouTube on the channel. Go check them out. Also available in podcast form there as well. But plenty to discuss on the show today. Obviously, big game for the Bengals. A lot of people down and out about Cincinnati right now, kind of, rightfully so. We called last week or 2 weeks ago a must-win game against Chicago. They obviously didn't win. And in my opinion, after you play the must-win card, you can't play it again if they lose, right? So I can't sit here and say this is a must-win game against Pittsburgh. But obviously we know if the Bengals want to have a chance at hanging in there in this thing, they need to win this football game. But we'll see. Obviously, the last time the Bengals won a game was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And looking to go 3-0 in the division, which obviously is something that could be very significant here for this team. So we'll break down Bengals versus Steelers on the road, Paycor Stadium, coming off a bye. Did they fix all their issues on defense over the bye week? Probably not. But we'll see. Obviously, some injuries. Hendrickson not going to play. Shamar Stewart doesn't look like he's not going to play. Probably a good thing for Cincinnati that he's not going to play. I don't know if he's officially been ruled out. I think the designation was questionable, but there's people out there speculating that, it doesn't look good for Shamar Stewart. So other guys are going to have to step up there at that edge rushing spot. And, that's we'll see if anybody is capable of doing that. There was a game yesterday. The Patriots and the Jets. We've had the Patriots at number 1 in our power rankings for a couple of weeks now. It's against the Jets. I'm not going to sit here and pat myself on the back for beating the Jets, but they look really good. Vrabel's awesome, dude. Mike Vrabel is just absolutely awesome. Would love to play for that guy if I was a player. Drake May, budding superstar, right? Kind of a disaster with Gerard Mayo, and then he was a one and done, and they bring in this guy Vrabel, who hard to believe that the Tennessee Titans fired him, and hard to believe that he didn't get a job last year, right? He had some role, advisor type of role with the Cleveland Browns, and him and Ben Johnson were the two hottest names kind of last cycle, and he gets the opportunity to go back to his team in which he played for, won championships with, and that appears to be an awesome fit. And not going to sit here and say it feels like old times for the Patriots, but you look up and it's like, they're at the top of the East, they're at the top of the AFC, and that's just kind of what I certainly grew up watching, right, with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but totally different play style, totally different, way they handle themselves. It's a lot more refreshing, right? New England always kind of felt like dark, gloomy, and they won a bunch of games, but it was very negative and very, a militant style almost. Doesn't feel like that anymore, but they're still, winning games here, and I don't think it's a fluke. I think they'll be able to continue building off this. So we'll talk about that game. Some takeaways from that. We'll do our college football weekend preview as we always do here at the show. Got a couple games we'll talk about. Notre Dame Pitt, that's at noon, ranked matchup there. Alabama Oklahoma, another ranked matchup in Tuscaloosa. Not the best matchup for Alabama. Iowa USC, another top 25 matchup. We'll talk Florida Ole Miss just because it's Lane Kiffin going up against potentially his future team in Florida. And then game of the weekend, obviously Texas and Georgia. That's in Athens. 6.5 point spread in favor of Georgia. And I have some thoughts on that game there as well. Brock Purdy is coming back for the San Francisco 49ers. Mac Jones has been awesome filling in for Brock Purdy and really has kept this thing afloat. I think if you had a backup quarterback that was just average or, solid and not really good like Mac Jones, I think this thing would have blown up and they wouldn't really have a chance at the postseason. Not the case here. Obviously a very tough division. Seattle and Los Angeles locks for the postseason, I would say, but San Francisco trying to fight, trying to hang in there, and they got a favorable matchup against the Cardinals, who are kind of a borderline disaster here at this point. And we'll see if Brock Purdy does not win this game or he doesn't look good in this game, it could get noisy in regards to what to do at that quarterback spot. They're doing the right thing. Purdy apparently is ready to go. He should be out there. He's under contract. He just got the big money deal. But if he struggles in this game, it's going to get very loud very quickly in San Francisco. And there's a team out there that I think should be doing everything in their power to get Mac Jones for the 2026 season. We'll talk about that there as well. And best bets of the weekend, we consulted with our boy Willie J. Once again, he helped us out last week, and we had a 4-1 week, so I was right back to it last night. Got 5 plays for our best bets of the weekend, 1 collegiate play, 4 NFL plays, and we'll talk about that to conclude today's show. As always, appreciate everyone hanging out. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Like the stream, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the podcast there as well, wherever you get your podcasts. But Bengals Steelers, 5.5 point spread in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe that was the exact same spread last time these two teams played a couple of weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. And, in a lot of ways, I expect it kind of to be a similar game, right? If you're the Bengals defense, is there any optimism that you're going to turn things around defensively and play better? I don't think there's really much to hang your hat on. Obviously, as the year continues to go on, you hope Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter can improve. We talked about that a lot on the show yesterday, and that will help a little bit at all 3 areas of the defense if they can start to play a little bit better. You look through some of the clips that are out there, and it's just they're not trusting always what they see. They're a split second late when it's coming to filling a hole, or if they need to get to the boundary and try to make a play, they're just a split second late. And in college, you can get away with that, and you let your athleticism and speed take over. But in the NFL, all these players are really, really good. So if you're seeing it a tick late, you're going to be in deep trouble, and that's kind of the situation Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter have found themselves in more often than not this year. And when you couple it with missing tackles all over the place, it's going to look really, really ugly. And obviously that's what Cincinnati is currently dealing with here at this point. So I don't know. Do you do tackling drills to improve that? I just think you're an NFL player here at this point. You got to get guys on the ground. And Barrett Carter specifically has really struggled where he meets a guy in a one-on-one situation and he can't get him on the ground. If your linebackers can't tackle as a defense, you're going to be a really, really bad defense. I don't care if you can rush the passer. The Bengals obviously can't. I don't care how well you cover on the back end. Bengals can't really do that either. But if your linebackers can't tackle, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble in this league. And we'll see if those two guys can kind of improve that. But I expect this game to look very similar. Again, I haven't done an in-depth look at the weather report for Pittsburgh in this game on Sunday, 1 o'clock game. Sometimes the wind there is a bit of an issue. Be interesting to see how that plays into the kicking game, right? Boswell seemingly always has a great game against the Bengals. Going to need McPherson to hit some kicks, right? If he's in range and you're not, able to convert and punch it in the end zone, McPherson's got to make some kicks. He's been okay this year. He hasn't really cost you like he did several times last year, but I don't know if you're exactly brimming with confidence with what McPherson was able to do, but I think the kicking game is going to be huge in this game there as well. And, the Bengals won the game on Thursday night. Obviously, Joe Burrow played incredible, but you won the game because you were able to force some turnovers. And unfortunately, you're going to need to do that again in this game. We've talked about it at length here at the show is, if you're a team that is so reliant on turnovers, that's just not a consistent way you can count on playing defense on a week-to-week basis. Sometimes in this league, you're not going to be able to force turnovers defensively, and your defense still needs to be able to get off the field to get some stops and ultimately get the ball back to your offense. It's hard for me to imagine that Cincinnati can win this game without getting a couple of turnovers, right? They were able to do it in the game on Thursday night, and that's what kind of helped them hung in there. Rodgers was, having his way, but DJ Turner, he had that incredible interception, and that was obviously huge. So you're going to have to find a way to steal a couple of possessions here in this game. And then you look at the trenches for this team along the defensive line, and Trey Hendrickson, he's not going to play. That's obviously an issue. I think a lot of people were holding on to some hope that he would be able to get a little bit more healthier over the bye and ultimately help this team on Sunday against Pittsburgh. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Again, there's a lot of discourse in the fan base, on the interweb about if he was under a long-term deal, would he go out there and play? I don't know, right? It's a hip/back. It's just kind of a player or an injury that an older player gets. And it looks like Cincinnati was right not giving him a long-term deal. I'm not going to sit here and speculate whether or not he would play if he was under a long-term deal. Just the fact that he's not playing is very, very unfortunate. And the Bengals really could use him. Again, no Shamar Stewart. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for this team because he's been awful. Really no two ways around it. He had the ankle that, cost him a couple of weeks. There's some questions. Was the ankle, hindering his performance here in these recent games? Maybe. Now he's got the knee. Is he going to play? There's some people saying he's not going to play. I don't think he's officially, as we're doing the show here live, been ruled out here at this point. But then you're looking at guys like Cam Sample. Is he going to step up, right? Cam Sample was a guy that's, I thought I liked. He was a late-round pick, not a later-round pick. I didn't have high expectations for him. But going into last year, I was like, Cam Sample, he's a solid player. pops his Achilles, and then this year he doesn't look like the same player. And sometimes, unfortunately, in this league, that's what happens, right? You suffer a serious injury. You pop an Achilles, you tear up your knee, and you come back, and you're just not the same player. And Cam Sample, he's got some run out there, but he doesn't look like the guy that he looked like before he popped his Achilles. So not much to be, really hopeful about as it relates to him and his performance. Myles Murphy, he's going to be out there a ton. That's not good, right? I mean, he can't get home. He can't stop the run. He can't set the edge. He can't do anything right. So that's going to be an issue. And then to me, there's one guy that I'm looking at, and I've said his name several times on the show, and that's Cedric Johnson, right, who missed the beginning parts of this year. And we start to see him a little bit more in recent weeks. He was a 6th-round pick for you at Ole Miss a couple of years ago. And I just think he has some athleticism and speed that you need to potentially get home, right? And, Pittsburgh, their offensive line was playing solid early in the year, but Mike Tomlin's really struggled with the offensive line for like the past 5 years, really. And there's going to be opportunities to exploit them along their offensive line, but do you have any personnel that can do that, right? TJ Slayton, he was your big signing in free agency. He hasn't done anything, right? BJ Hill appears to be horribly washed, right? And you just gave him an extension. Duke Tobin did. That doesn't look good there either. Chris Jenkins Jr., who you took in the second round a couple, 2 years ago, right? Yeah, he showed some promise in the Minnesota game, the game that he got blown out in. But apart from that, what has he done? Yeah, not much whatsoever. So obviously you have questions along there. But I could see Cedric Johnson. Like if he had a game where he went out there and had 2 sacks in this game or something like that, sack and a couple of pressures on Aaron Rodgers, maybe that could help you out defensively. But this defensive line, talk about the linebackers kind of being the root of your issues on defense, but when you got 2 rookies playing behind an offense or a defensive line that can't get any push and in fact just gets pushed back on every single play, that makes things really, really difficult for you. And then you got guys at safety that don't know what they're doing, and then you got one good player in DJ Turner, but it's like, I mean, how can you get stops here in this situation? And something that was floated around on off the bench by Reed and Craig was that maybe Al Golden will send some pressure here. I personally don't want to do that, right, to Aaron Rodgers, right? Because seemingly every time the Bengals send pressure, and they don't often do it, and even last year with Lou, he didn't do it, and when he did, it was not good. Because if you send pressure in this league and you don't get home, or you don't at least hit the quarterback or get in his face, you're going to give up huge chunk plays, and you're going to give up a ton of points. And when you're dealing with an elite quarterback, I understand Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career probably not elite, but when you have a guy that's been there, done that, has seen everything, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers in his heyday, if you blitzed him, that was just you were just kind of it was self-sabotage, essentially, as a defense if you were to blitz Aaron Rodgers. And I just think the way the Bengals are, if you blitz him, you're not going to get home, and he's going to dice you up, and he's going to find his guys in one-on-one situations and make really, really big plays. So I don't know, if that would be the smartest thing in the world to blitz Aaron Rodgers in this game. But we'll see. Obviously, you have to switch some things up. And, if he's dicing you up when you're not sending pressure, maybe you got to send some pressure. But I think, Jesse Minter did a good job last week with, he sent some pressure to Aaron Rodgers, and he was able to get home. But also they had a pass rush when they weren't blitzing, right? The Bengals, when they don't have a pass rush when they're not blitzing, right? So that's where things get a little bit dicey, but I certainly early in the game would not send pressure after Aaron Rodgers. Maybe if you find yourself and you have a lead and you're like, well, we don't feel good about getting off the field here, maybe you just say, screw it, let's send pressure and see what happens. But early in the game, I definitely would not be doing it. And then you look at the back end of your defense, right? We'll see the matchups. They got some guys that are dinged up. Scotty Miller, of course, but it's not, a great receiving core for Pittsburgh. Feels like they have a million tight ends. Bengals obviously can't cover tight ends. And DK Metcalf, who I think you have an ability to kind of eliminate him from the game. Obviously, he had a big game against Cincinnati. He had the big play right their first drive on Thursday night. But, you put DJ Turner on him. I think teams have proven they can kind of eliminate him from a game, right? And we'll see if anybody can do that for Cincinnati. But if you can do that, that could go a long way. And I've talked about this at length. John Schneider, I think that was a great move to get off of DK Metcalf. He knew what he had as a 1 in JSN. He just needed to kind of unleash him. That's clearly working. And DK is making a ton of money, and I don't think his production is even close to that production of JSN. So DK is a good player. He's really a physical player, obviously. But I think the Bengals, have the opportunity to borderline eliminate him from this game, especially if they keep DJ Turner on him a lot. And then the safety position, we were talking about this with Gabby yesterday, where, Geno Stone and Jordan Battle, they just keep rolling the same guys out there. Lou was doing this last year where he was just rolling the same guys out there. It must show you a lot about how much faith or no faith at all that this Bengals team and this coaching staff having a guy like Tyson Anderson or P.J. Jules to go out there and try to play the safety position, if they're just going to continue to send Geno Stone out there, who just can't make a tackle, and he's slow, and he's not in the right place at the right time. He doesn't know how to, it doesn't fit runs well. His run fits are all out of whack, so he doesn't do much right on the field. And when you have that big of a issue on the back end of your defense, it can look really, really bad. So that matchup obviously is going to be something that a lot of people have a close eye on. But look, again, we've talked about this, I feel like a broken record throughout the entire offseason and throughout the entire year to this point. If you can just get off the field a couple of times on third down, you're going to have an opportunity to win. If you said Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers score 28 points in this game, I would say sign me up. Absolutely sign me up. I will take that right here, right now. But once you get into that 30 range, puts a ton of pressure on your offense, and then you're sitting there where it's like, yeah, if you score a bunch, but if you just have one drive that isn't great or Joe Flacco makes one mistake, you're really behind the eight ball. So we'll see if this defense can get off the field at all on third down in this game. But then, of course, the other matchup is what's Cincinnati going to do? Jamar Chase, of course, had an all-time game on Thursday. What do you have, 16 catches in the game, just something ridiculous, and 20-some targets, just absolutely nuts. And I don't blame Joe Flacco at all for doing that. Reed talked about the injury. Is it a concern? Coming off a bye, I'm not as concerned. I feel like it's not going to be worse than it was against the Bear game, right? Again, I don't know the specific details here, but I feel like worst case, it's about the same, and that's fine. Joe Flacco was great there in that game. Hopefully the Bengals only need him for a couple more games before Joe Burrow comes back. But, the Bengals are going to have to score points in this game. We all know that. We all understand that. And, I think we all should be really excited about seeing this Bengals offense go to work again because they've been great over the course of the past few weeks. Zach Taylor's done a great job with the offense. The running game has certainly improved. And, that's going to be something I have a close eye on as well because, again, I don't know if Samaje Perine has been listed definitely as out, but I would be shocked if he played. Remember, he kind of got rolled up on there on that special teams play a couple of weeks ago against the Bears. And we saw, when the Bengals really couldn't get anything going in the run game, they kind of pivoted to, okay, we're going to do more of a 50-50 here with Perine and Chase Brown. They did that, and obviously the offensive line got a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more better. But the running game improved. It'll be interesting to see if they kind of do that with Taj Brooks, right? Because, we bang on these Bengals rookies here. Taj Brooks hasn't really flashed anything, but he hasn't really had crazy opportunities to do much. It'll be interesting to see what kind of opportunities he gets in the game against Pittsburgh, or if this will kind of be back to the end of the 2024 season where the Bengals were just basically saying, yep, exclusively Chase Brown in the run game. That is it, and that's what we're rolling with. That worked obviously last year, but you had Joe Burrow. Will that work this year if they opt to do that? It didn't work early on, and it'll be interesting to see if you kind of get a 50-50 split there or not with Taj Brooks and Chase Brown. And obviously your stars got to be stars in this game. Jamar Chase has to have a big game, right? If he's matched up with Jalen Ramsey, I love it, right? I know Ramsey's kind of bounced around. He was kind of at that nickel. Now he's playing a lot of safety right now. He made headlines this offseason where he was like, yeah, I won Uno when we play Cincinnati. Well, you got him on Thursday night, and he absolutely torched you. So we'll see if Pittsburgh deploys that same strategy or not. Obviously, Porter there on the other side, if he's going to guard T or whatever the case may be, it'll be interesting to see what they do from a decision-making standpoint there for the Steelers defense. But your stars got to be stars in this game. T. Higgins has to have a big game. Jamar Chase has to have a big game, and of course Joe Flacco has to have a big game too, and you got to keep this momentum going with the run game. You can't be one-dimensional, and that's something that hasn't gotten enough credit, I think, for this Bengals team in recent weeks because obviously all the blame is on Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor and this defense, but from a run game perspective, that's gotten a lot better. We'll see if that continues against Pittsburgh. They could run it on them on Thursday night. They're going to need to do that again in this game, and Steelers, they're not a team that can run the ball really well, but they ran it all over you on Thursday night. Can somebody step up in the interior and make a play at the line of scrimmage? Because, there's no way you're holding Green Bay under 30 points if Jalen Warren's going to have another big game. It's just not going to happen. So that's a matchup that a lot of people are going to have their eyes on. But, another opportunity to go 3-0 in the division, opportunity to get some confidence back. We'll see if this team plays with a different juice and a different energy. There's always an opportunity for that to be the case coming off a bye, right? And also you couple that with Joe Burrow returning to practice, and we'll see if there's more of a spunk or more of an energy with this team. But it's a 5.5 point spread. It's not one of our best bets of the weekend, but I expect Cincinnati to go in there and cover this spread. I think they're going to find themselves in a high-scoring game. I know that's not, a bold prediction to come out there and say that, and I think they'll have an opportunity here to hang around late. And, if they force a turnover or make a turnover late, that's probably going to be the difference, whether they're forcing one defensively or Joe Flacco or the offense is giving the football away. And, I think ultimately it will come down to that, and I'm sure it'll come down to maybe a call from the officials in the game there as well. Cincinnati, it would shock me if they absolutely, blew out the Steelers, right? But it would also shock me if the Steelers blew out the Bengals. I expect this to be a competitive game. Maybe it'll get back to its roots and be like a true AFC North game, but there's not really anything that would indicate that would be the case. It just, maybe the weather turns or it gets really windy, maybe. But, for now, it seems like it's going to be another high-scoring game. And, when you have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Flacco that looks incredible, you feel like you have a chance. But, obviously we're all going to be watching the defense without Trey Anderson, without Shamar Stewart, wondering how in the world they're going to get off the field. And we'll see if they can make any improvements coming out of the bye. We'll see if there's any scheme differences from Al Golden. Talked about this yesterday. You can't really dumb it down anymore, right? That was the thing with Lou Anarumo, where he was like, he had this more complex scheme, more built for veteran-type players, and he had a lot of youth on the team last year, and he said, you know what, we have to change this up. We have to simplify this and make it really easy so our players can be playing a lot faster. He did that, and the defense played a little bit better. But Jay Morrison was talking about this on Off the Bench when he came on a couple of days ago. Al Golden's, what he's doing is already pretty simple, right? I don't know if you can really make any changes to that. It'll be interesting to see if they try different matchups in this game, right? Again, second time we're playing Pittsburgh, right? If I was the Steelers, I wouldn't be putting Jalen Ramsey on Jamar Chase. Well, if you're the Bengals, maybe you look at how you match up a little bit differently there on the defensive side of the football as well. So we'll see if there are any chess match type decisions there from Zach Taylor, Mike Tomlin. I expect Zach to be aggressive on fourth down like he typically is. And, it's going to come down to a handful of plays like it always does. And we'll see if they can't get any momentum here. Because if you win this game, you're not fully back in it, but it's like, okay, you knocked off, that's another loss for Pittsburgh. They're really reeling at that point if they lose this game. Baltimore, of course, probably going to beat Cleveland, but you're not far behind them. Number 9's moving around at practice. He looks all right. So, you have a real opportunity here if you win this game. But obviously, if you lose, then things get really dark as you sit there at 3-7. It's like, well, you probably got to run the table to get in. And then, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see when Joe Burrow comes back, because he's going to come back. And that is the right decision for him to come back if he is fully healthy. I know we went back and forth on that on Off the Bench. Let me be clear. If he is fully healthy, it is the right decision. I'm not sitting here saying bring back Joe Burrow at 70%. And I haven't talked to Joe Burrow, obviously. And I haven't been at the practices, but I've seen all the clips that everybody else has. And he's running around and he's, stretching and doing his jumping jacks or whatever. And putting a lot of weight on that toe and appears to be moving at full speed. The arm looks great, as it always does. And, Craig brought this up on Off the Bench. Would you be completely shocked at this point if he suited up next week? I know that's not the plan. I know nobody's saying that. I know they view Thanksgiving as an optimistic timeline, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was playing next week. So we'll see. That's certainly something to monitor here. But Bengals are going to call in Joe Flacco once again to see if he can ultimately keep this thing rolling. All right, Thursday Night Football. Last night, Jets-Patriots. It's the Jets, right? They beat the Cincinnati Bengals, but, terrible team, worst team in the NFL, I'd say. Maybe you could argue it's the Titans, but the Jets are really dysfunctional. And when you put them behind in the game, they actually had a lead in this game, but if you put them behind and you're not playing the Bengals defense, things can get really difficult for them because they don't really have much of a passing attack. You make them kind of one-dimensional. If you're going to make Fields drop back and throw, you can just pin your ears back as defense, get after him, and that's really he's he doesn't have much of a chance there. They got rookies on their offensive line. He doesn't have a ton of help. I get that. Freaky athlete, as we all know, but really struggles with, layering his throws, and the down the field accuracy obviously isn't there really for Justin Fields. Good arm, but things obviously haven't really materialized in the NFL the way a lot of people thought for Justin Fields, but he's in a tough spot here with the New York Jets. But the big takeaway is the New England Patriots and how they continue to win games here, right? The knock on them is like, oh, they haven't played anybody. That's what happens. When you have a bad year in the NFL, you get a favorable schedule the following year, and if you make changes in the offseason to make yourself a good team, you bring in a really good coach and say, we have something here in the quarterback. We just need to develop him. Oh, here comes McDaniels coming back into the fold. You're in a really good spot. And that's what New England's doing right now. And you look around this AFC, people are talking about them like, oh, they might win the AFC East over Buffalo. They might win the AFC. They might have a number one overall seed. I mean, you look who they're competing with, Indianapolis and Denver at this point, right? It's not like, Buffalo and Kansas City are making this charge for this number one seed. You're competing with a team like Denver and a team like Indianapolis, who I think Indianapolis is good, but we don't trust their quarterback. In Denver, they got a really good defense, but we don't trust their offense. We don't trust their quarterback either. I think a lot more people trust Drake May right now, and rightfully so, than Bo Nix and Daniel Jones there as well. So just watching them, I mean, the team loves Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is absolutely awesome. And, it's built on some of the same principles that, the Patriots teams during the dynasty were built upon as well. And Herbie was talking about this on the broadcast yesterday. There's a bunch of guys there on their defense that have been cut, that have been kind of casted away and written off. And here they are in New England coming together, playing for Coach Vrabel and playing really, really good. Gonzalez, star there at that cornerback spot. He can run with anybody. He's big, he's tough, he's physical, he's smooth out there. I think Surtain's clearly the best corner in the National Football League. You put Stingley up there certainly as well. But this Gonzalez kid out of Oregon, who's been there for a couple of years, has had some injury issues there as well. But when he's healthy, he's one of the best in the league. And if you have a lockdown guy like that at corner, and you have a defensive line that's solid and can stop the run and apply a little bit of pass rush, got guys at your linebacker spots that can tackle, you're going to have a good defense. Still got some questions in the back end besides Gonzalez, but that defensive front's really good. Barmore, his presence in the middle of that defensive line is incredible, and they've got a really solid defense. Again, is it a top 5 defense in the NFL? No, but it is good enough to win a world championship. I do know that for sure. And then you look at the offensive side of the ball and what Drake May has to offer, and, you got to be careful sometimes in this league when you take just a traits guy, right? The Bengals did it on the defensive side with Shamar Stewart, but specifically at the quarterback position, Anthony Richardson, right? Whoever, I can't imagine picking him in the first round, but he has this huge arm. He's really strong and really fast and really, tough to tackle. Let's take him. No, he wasn't good in college, and he's not good in the NFL, and he never will be good in the NFL. With Drake May, there were some people that had some concerns. I didn't personally, just because, you saw some of these attributes at Carolina from a leadership perspective and a maturity perspective as well. And when you play quarterback, that's almost equally as important as your skill set in terms of throwing the football. Obviously, he's a big, tough, strong guy that's hard to bring down. He's got a great arm, and he's got great mobility, but he checks off all the intangible boxes there as well. His teammates love him, right? He's a great leader. He says all the right things. He's not going to get too down in the, when he faces adversity. He's very, level-headed. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. All the important things you need in a quarterback, he brings those to the table. And you pair him with a great offensive coordinator, McDaniels, more on him in a second, and a coach in Mike Vrabel who loves him and believes in him, it's going to look really, really good. And things look really, really good in New England. And there's got to be confidence, if you're a Patriots fan, that this is going to continue for quite some time if Drake May can stay healthy, because Vrabel, he's the head coach. He's going to be there for a long time. He's not going anywhere. Are you going to leave and take a better job? Not really a better job that you can take. And McDaniels as well. I think he's going to be there for a really long time. Sometimes you worry with these coordinators, like, oh, shoot, we got to capitalize now because he's going to leave and take a head coaching job. McDaniels has done that. He has been the head coach, and he is not a good head coach in the NFL. And if I'm an NFL team with an opening, regardless of how good he does with Drake May and how good this Patriot offense is, I don't have any interest in bringing him in as a head coach. I think he could kind of fall into that category of Steve Spagnuolo for Kansas City. Obviously a defensive guy, but he's just great at his job. But these teams around the league are like, yeah, we've seen you be a head coach, and it wasn't good. credit to you. You're a great defensive coordinator, but we don't have interest in you being a head coach. I think many teams around the league are going to feel the same way. And honestly, if I'm Josh McDaniels, you've been in this league for a long time. You've been in football for a long time. You've won world titles. You've made a ton of money. Why would you leave? Honestly, right? You've tried it as a head coach. It didn't work, right? If you're not going to go to some super stable organization and be a head coach. If they were super stable, they wouldn't have an opening at the head coaching spot. So I'm not really worried about him leaving. And if you can have that marriage of Drake May and Josh McDaniels, whew, that's incredible. That's incredible because we all, Tom Brady obviously is great, but he's not as good as he was if you take Josh McDaniels out of there, right? He's just simply not. A lot of Brady's success should go to Josh McDaniels. And I feel like for whatever reason, McDaniels doesn't get a lot of credit, right? It was all Belichick and Brady. And Belichick, obviously a defensive guy, and there was like, oh, Tom Brady. There towards, that second half when he was winning world titles, and the Seattle Super Bowl that year, I mean, that's McDaniels, right? That's Josh McDaniels, and he was incredible with Brady. And if that can be a partnership there with Drake May for a long time, that's going to result in a lot of wins, and that's going to be fun watching him and Josh Allen go back and forth there in that division for quite some time. And then also the signing of Stephon Diggs, incredible, absolutely incredible. When they did it, I was like, what are you doing? This is a guy coming off a serious injury, and he's had maturity issues. He chirps a little bit, kind of reminds you of Jimmy Butler maybe a little bit. Like he's kind of a whiner, and when things don't go his way, he pouts a little bit. And, he was like best friends with Josh Allen, and then he like turned on him and was like, what are you doing? So if things get bad in New England, at some point they're going to face adversity. We'll see if he turns a little bit. But for right now, in his performance on the field, he's been terrific. And they've hit that signing out of the park, and they've got other guys there offensively there as well. But I think that's one acquisition here this offseason that's not really being talked about much. Stephon Diggs to New England. What a great move by them. And he's kind of, been that presence for them as a receiver. And then Matt Collins, who thought he was going to be, good this year. He's really good as well. Hunter Henry's been there for a few years. He was, there through the bad years there the past couple. And obviously he was kind of Mac Jones's go-to guy as a rookie. But he's there. And he's really good at that tight end spot. And then Travion Henderson has kind of emerged here over the course of the past 2 weeks. He was one of those guys where, coming into the NFL, like he was going to be a solid NFL player. You didn't know necessarily if he was going to be a star or what, but it's like this guy's going to be a good NFL player. And I think one thing that kind of helped him is that, he didn't face a lot of punishment really at Ohio State that last year, right? When you bring in Judkins and they were kind of splitting carries, before they brought in Judkins, you're thinking, oh, Henderson, they're going to ride him all year long. But he didn't get a ton of carries that allowed him to stay kind of fresh as he was paired there with Judkins. And then obviously they were kind of going with Ramondre Stevenson for the first few weeks as, Henderson was kind of getting his feet wet here, but he looks like a complete hit. He was sensational. What, he had 3 touchdowns in the game last night. It's always been good as a receiver out of the backfield there as well. So, they made some good moves in free agency. They hit the coach out of the park. They hit the quarterback out of the park. And I think this team's going to be a problem for a long time. And I think it's a lot more fun. I was never a Brady guy. I was never a Patriots guy. In fact, you could classify me as a hater of them. But it just feels different, right? Because it felt so dark and depressing. And, yeah, they were winning games, but it was just boring and it was mundane and they were cheating, right? So it doesn't feel like that anymore. Like you look at Gillette Stadium, which is great stadium, by the way, one of the best I think in the NFL, and it's uplifting, it's positive, there's an energy, there's a vibe to it that is just it attracts you. And that's what you have in New England right now, and it's awesome. And I think Drake May obviously is kind of spearheading that along with Mike Vrabel. They made some good acquisitions this offseason, and they're in a spot to be really good for a really long time. So we'll see. If you're facing the Chiefs in the playoffs this year, right, or the Bills even in the playoffs, even if you beat the Bills twice the regular season, you're always going to be like, okay, let's see what you got. You're a good team here, but what are you going to do in the postseason? And I think Drake May has all elements to being a good postseason quarterback. And, we'll see. Because I think another thing, if you play in New England, got to be able to play in the elements, got to be able to play in the cold and the snow and the sleet and the rain. He's got, the size, the hand size, the arm strength to be able to do that, right? That was the thing about Brady. I think one thing that he doesn't necessarily get enough credit for is as far as a bad weather quarterback, like, you could say, well, he was the best bad weather quarterback. He's the best quarterback ever. Fine, if that's what you believe. But he clearly is the best bad weather quarterback ever, and he knew exactly how to handle the elements. And if you got – kind of feels like, Arrowhead these days where it's like if you got the Patriots at Gillette Stadium, which is where most of their because they seemingly were always the 1 seed, and it was at Gillette. It was going to be really tough for you because you were going to be playing in weather that wasn't ideal, and Brady knew how to handle that. And I think Drake May is going to be able to handle that kind of weather there as well. But I've been high on the Patriots all year, and they continue to win football games. And, I get it. They have a weak schedule. That's what happens in the NFL when you have a really bad season the previous year. College football weekend preview. We do it every week. We do it every Friday here at the show. Got some good games. Notre Dame, Pitt, Oklahoma, Alabama, Iowa, USC. We'll touch on Florida, Ole Miss, and the game of the weekend, of course, Texas and Georgia. Let's start with the noon game. That is Notre Dame and Pitt. It is at Pitt. Notre Dame, 12.5-point favorites in this game. It's a huge game for the college football playoff, right? I said very early in the year, even after Notre Dame dropped those 2 games early, I was, hey, I think Notre Dame's a good team. I think they're going to win out. I think they're going to make the college football playoff. I still believe that, but this is going to be a challenge for them, and really because of this matchup, and that is the run defense of Pitt. Pitt is ranked 22, but not a ton of people have been talking about Pitt here at this point, but they're the number 1 run defense in the country as it relates to yards per carry allowed, and that's a huge stat. There in this game, because obviously Notre Dame is built on, we got Jeremiah Love, we got Jadarian Price, we're going to run the football, and that's going to be kind of our identity as a team. I don't know if they're going to necessarily have a ton of success doing that here in this game. A lot's going to be asked of CJ Carr. Obviously, he's a first-year starter. He's a young guy, and it's kind of, there's been some ups, there have been some downs for CJ Carr, and I think next year you're really going to see him take a big-time step for Notre Dame, and I think he'll probably be viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Not at that level yet, and you question, what version of CJ Carr you're going to get. Pitt made a switch a couple of weeks ago to a freshman quarterback, and he's come in and he's lit it up, and he's been throwing the ball all over the field, and he's done a really nice job. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles this type of game, and this is the biggest game of his life. He's a freshman, he's playing Notre Dame at home, and that's an opportunity for him to really make his mark, and for this to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Pitt's going to hang in there. Pat Narduzzi made headlines this week where he was like, I don't understand this at all. I don't know the exact quote off my head, but he basically was like, yeah, we could lose by 100 in this game. I'm worried about how we do in our conference. And what are you talking about? You're playing Notre Dame, a perennial program. Are you butthurt maybe that they're not in a conference? Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Are you trying to make a point about that? I don't know. But you're playing a top 10 team in the country, and this is a huge opportunity for your team to go out there and win. And you're going to basically be like, it's whatever. I'm worried about the conference. Like, he literally said this. Go look it up. It's insane. So I don't know what he's doing. I've always respected him. He's done a nice job. I don't know if he had a mental lapse there in the press conference, or if he meant it to come out a different way. But I was like, dude, what in the world are you saying? It's a great opportunity for your football team against good competition to really see where you're at and pick up a big-time win. You're a ranked team. It's not like you're a winless team, right? You're a ranked team. You should be a solid football team, and you have a top 10 team in Notre Dame coming in. This would be a huge win for your program, something that's talked about for years if you pull off this win. And I don't know what in the world he was thinking, but we'll see. Game's at noon. It's the best noon game. Michigan Northwestern also at noon. I believe that's at Wrigley, by the way, which I've got mixed emotions on that, why exactly they do that. But, that'll be a good game. Notre Dame and Pitt. Notre Dame 12.5-point favorites. Not touching it for best bets of the weekend, but I would guess Notre Dame wins, but Pitt covers is kind of what my gut says here at this point. Oklahoma and Alabama. The gauntlet continues for the Crimson Tide. They continue to win football games, and Ty Simpson continues to be a great quarterback. I think the past couple haven't been his best. You've seen him miss some throws in these games, and I think that's why you saw, obviously, South Carolina hung around for a while in that game, and a lot of people would say they should have won that game, and then you really weren't able to blow out or pull away, I should say, from LSU like you had an opportunity to do in that game because you missed some throws there in the second half. Only 5.5-point spread, by the way, which some people might be surprised by that. I wouldn't say I am, because this is a tough matchup for the Alabama Crimson Tide, despite the fact this game is at home. Obviously, it was at Norman last year, and that's the worst game I've ever seen Alabama play in my entire life, is how they played on the road against Oklahoma last year with Jalen Milroe. But obviously, they have an actual quarterback this year, which will be helpful. But, the OU offense we talked about this a lot here at the show. They started off, and you're like, oh, Oklahoma, they might have something here. In the first couple of weeks, you started to throw the word Heisman out with John Mateer, their quarterback, who was the biggest get in the portal out of Washington State. You brought him here at Oklahoma, and he was off to a terrific start. But then he had the hand injury, right? Curtis Rourke had the same hand injury for Indiana last year, had the surgery, comes back, not the same. You're seeing that here with Mateer and this Oklahoma team. He kind of felt like he rushed back for Red River, which credit to him. I wouldn't want to miss that game either. Showed his toughness, but he had a horrible game there against Texas, and kind of the reason they lost that game, to be completely honest with you. And so the offense really has been sputtering, to say the least, for Oklahoma. So if Alabama is able to put up a bunch of points in this game, they'll win, no problem. But Oklahoma can get after you from a pass rush perspective, and they can get after the quarterback. And I think it's interesting because for whatever reason, people have not fully gotten on board with Ty Simpson yet, and I don't know why. And the people that sit there and say Mendoza is better than Ty Simpson, I don't get that at all. You want to say Julian Sainz better than him? Fine. But you want to say Fernando Mendoza is better than Ty Simpson? That's an incorrect statement. And, people were sitting there talking about this game saying, they're going to get after Ty Simpson. He's not going to be able to handle it. That's fine. He'll get rid of the ball quickly. He'll move outside the pocket. I think he's going to be fine in this game. But it'll be interesting to see if the Bama run game can improve, right? They were one-dimensional against LSU. LSU, stopped the run beautifully in that game. Alabama's had issues running the ball throughout spurts of the season to this point. So, look, I've said this a million times with Alabama. If Ty Simpson goes out there and isn't really, really good to borderline great, they're not a great football team, and they can lose to anybody, especially in the SEC, if that's the case, right? They've got too many weaknesses on their team. They're not a complete enough football team where they can get away with that. But I'm expecting Ty Simpson to handle this pass rush fine. And this offensive line has improved. They got punched in the mouth against Florida State, and continuously each and every week they've gotten a little bit better, right? And they've stayed healthy along the offensive line there for the most part. Brailsford at center, he's playing great. Proctor looks like he's a top 10, 12 pick in the NFL draft, right? Wilkin Formby, who we thought was going to be their weak link, he's hanging in there at that right tackle spot. And then Jaden Roberts kind of has found his way back a little bit there as well. He's been solid there at that guard spot. So I think this Bama offensive line is going to be able to hang in there. I think Ty is going to be able to make quick decisions, get rid of the ball quickly, and escape the pocket, right? It's about talking about Mendoza. Can he throw on the run as well as Ty Simpson? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I get why the spread is what it is, and but I would lean Alabama here with it only being 5.5. But one thing that I did not mention yet is kind of Oklahoma offensively has struggled, right? But what's been the blueprint to beat Alabama? It's with a quarterback that can move and that can run with the RPO stuff, and that is obviously something Mateer is really, really good at, and we'll see if that causes issues for Alabama. LSU tried to exploit that a little bit when Garrett Nussmeier was 18 of 21, and they benched him for a guy that could move around a little bit more. Didn't really work. But, it's a different kind of ball game there with Mateer. But the Alabama defense has gotten better each week. It was bad, obviously, last year and bad for, the beginning parts of this year. But they've gotten a little bit incrementally better, too, similar to the offensive line. So I don't have this on Best Bets of the Weekend right now, but we'll see when we do it in about 5 minutes whether I just throw Alabama in. Because 5.5, I mean, I get it. It's a bad matchup for Alabama. It's a bad matchup, but I'm expecting the quarterback to rise above and play really good in this game. Iowa and USC. The question here is simple. Is Iowa going to be able to turn it into an Iowa-style game? And if they do, they might win. And they'll probably cover if they do. I have my reservations on whether or not they are going to be able to do that. Iowa obviously made the Oregon game an Iowa-style game. What's Iowa really good at? Really good at defense, really good at special teams, field position, getting a couple of turnovers, right? They're not much there offensively. They're 21. USC is 17. Obviously, it is not at Kinnick. It is at USC. That's huge in this game. And, Iowa wants to run the football, and teams have been able to run the football a little bit against USC this year. You think about Illinois. They were able to run the ball. They won the game. Notre Dame, obviously, won the ball, ran the ball. They won the game. Michigan as well was able to run the ball, but USC obviously won that football game. So Iowa, they're not going to try to trick you. They're going to try to run the football, and we're going to find out early on if USC can stop that. And also, Iowa doesn't really give up explosives, and that's something that Lincoln Riley is always looking to do, right, with Malachi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, pushing the ball down the football field, and we'll see if they're able to pick up some explosives in this game. Because if USC can pull away, this thing could get ugly. But if Iowa can just hang in there and keep it close and bleed clock and run the football and just make it kind of a slugfest type of game, and a game where, it's under 20 points for both teams, you got to think that Iowa's got a really good chance to win this game. But Lincoln Riley needs to win this game. Talked about it with the Michigan game. That's a game you need to win this game if you're Lincoln Riley. He won the Michigan game. You got to win this game against Iowa, right? If you want to really bring USC back to national relevance and prominence and eventually be a national national title contender there. Got to win this game. USC obviously not a national title contender this year, but this is a game you need to win to take that next step as a program. You have more talent. You're a more talented team. I would argue you have a better staff there as well, but Farron's obviously has done a tremendous job there at Iowa, and you're at home. You need to win this game. You need to win this game. We will revisit in a couple of minutes for Best Bets of the weekend. Florida and Ole Miss. Why are you talking about Florida Ole Miss? That's not a good game. Well, Lane Kiffin might be going up against his future team, obviously the Florida Gators. This line, I think it was like 11.5 this morning. I saw it like 15.5 earlier in the week, so that's kind of curious there. Ole Miss is ranked 7th. They just beat the Citadel. Well, congrats to them for a big-time win there against the Citadel. The question is, are the Rebels going to be distracted in this game? And Kiffin's done a nice job because the rumors have been swirling for a couple of weeks now, and Ole Miss has continued to play good football. Is that going to continue here against Florida, right? And Joel Klatt mentioned this, and, he's got a lot of good sources, so I tend to believe him here as he says this. He hears that Ole Miss is essentially going to blank check Lane Kiffin. However much you want, we'll make it happen. We want you to stay. And by the way, that is the correct decision to make if you're Ole Miss, if you're, that athletic department, the boosters, the funding to that program, the donors, right? That's the right call to make. And apparently LSU is going to do the same thing with Lane Kiffin. Basically say, blank check. Whatever you want, whatever you need, we got you. Apparently, according to Joel Klatt, Florida is not completely sold on Lane Kiffin, and they're not willing to blank check him like, Ole Miss and LSU, which is noteworthy. And Klatt thinks, and I think this too, that if Kiffin were to pick, he would pick Florida over LSU and Ole Miss and Penn State, obviously, and maybe an NFL job too there as well. So if you're Kiffin and you want that Florida job and you want them to blank check you, you need to go out and dominate this game, right? You can't, just go in there and barely win or lose this game, obviously. You want to sell Florida that you can be the guy. And if you go in there, it's at home, it's not in the swamp, but if you go in there and beat the you-know-what out of Florida, they're, the people making the decisions there for the Gators are going to be like, okay, maybe we're completely sold here. So that's going to be interesting to watch here. Remember, Florida beat Ole Miss last year, and that's what ultimately kept Jackson Dart and the Rebels out of the playoffs. So there's got to be, a bit of a fire in their belly as well to get a bit of a get back here in this game. And, Florida hung in there, right? They hung in there against Georgia, right? But, sometimes when you're in a spot where your coach is fired, you're able to really get up and play your best for the big games, right? But then the games that aren't necessarily huge, you struggle with. And what happened? They went to Kroger Field last week against Kentucky and just got smacked. And DJ Lagway got benched, I think, at halftime, right? So they're a bit of a mess. And, Ole Miss needs to win this game handily. One, for their, confidence this year, right? Because people kind of have stopped talking about them as a team this year, and all the conversation goes to Lane Kiffin, he's going to leave. This is a team that can win the national title. Right? This is absolutely a team that can win a national title. So, if I'm Kiffin, I'm doing everything I can to make sure my team is focused, not distracted, and continuing to believe. And this is a game they need to win, and they should win. And, again, there's a bit of that get-back factor there as well, considering what transpired last year. Lastly, Texas and Georgia, game of the weekend. Look, Texas is lucky, flat out, to be in this position. Right, they had the 2 overtime wins against 2 of the worst teams in the SEC, Kentucky and Mississippi State. You got lucky to win both of them. And they haven't played a complete football game all year. Yeah, it's a nice win you had against Oklahoma, but you didn't play well for 60 minutes. Yeah, it was a nice win against Vandy, but you just stopped playing in the fourth quarter, right? So what evidence is there out there that Texas is going to be able to put a complete game out there? In order to beat Kirby, especially in Athens, You have to put a complete game together. So I have my reservations on whether or not that will happen. Obviously, Georgia and Texas played twice last year. They played in Austin, and they played in the SEC title game. Both times Georgia won. Both times maybe the score was close, but it didn't. It just kind of, obviously it was very close to the end in the SEC title game, but it just kind of felt like it was only a matter of time before Georgia pulled away, ultimately won the game. Now, the reason why Georgia was able to have so much success against Texas last year was because the defense got after Quinn Ewers, the quarterback at the time. Both of those games really got after him, made him uncomfortable. I don't know if Georgia has that ability to do that this year. Again, this is a Georgia team that's really good, but it doesn't look like a typical Georgia team at all. Their strength is actually offense for once and not defense. So this Texas offensive line has gotten better, right? Arch was getting all the crap at the beginning of the year, but his offensive line was not good. Their offensive line has gotten incrementally better, and obviously Arch has played his best football here of late over the course of the past few weeks. They also had an off week coming into this game as well, as to potentially get a little bit fresher, get a little bit healthier, and ultimately try to play their best here in this game. Both times last year, Kirby kept Texas under 20 points, right? And they sacked Ewers 13 times total in those two games, which is kind of a mind-boggling stat. Again, they're not going to be able to apply that kind of pressure here in this game. Arch Manning has to play really, really well. He has to. And I kind of expect him to, honestly. I definitely want him to. I'm an Arch guy. I got no problem admitting that. But I kind of expect him to play in this game, and I think he will. But, again, where's the evidence that they're going to be able to put this thing together for 60 minutes? Where's the evidence that they're going to be better situationally, right? They're not – people talk about Sark like he's at the top, and I like Sark. I respect Sark. He's a good coach, but he ain't Kirby Smart, right? I know for a fact that situationally when things get tight in the fourth quarter, if they do, Georgia's going to be more buttoned up. They're going to make less mistakes. They're going to be better prepared in this game. And Texas on the road has stunk this year, right? Because they have, of course, the loss against Ohio State, the loss against Florida, and then the two overtime wins that they were lucky to win against Kentucky and Mississippi State. Played horrible in those games. And typically, teams don't go into Athens and win, right? Kalen DeBoer in Alabama does, but beyond that, nobody really does that. So it's going to be a tremendous challenge for them. I thought the spread would be more of like a 7.5 than a 6.5, but Georgia favored by 6.5. I'm staying away. I'm rooting for Texas. Like I keep saying, Georgia's going to lose at some point, but I still think they're a national title team. Maybe it's this week. I'm going to be pulling for Arch to have a big game and kind of shut up some of those critics. I've got questions on whether or not they got enough pieces or enough talent and awareness situationally around him to play well enough on the road to win this game. But I'm pulling for Arch. And ultimately, when you have a game like this, the top 10 showdown in the SEC, storied programs, great head coaches, star quarterback, borderline 2 stars, right? Because Gunnar Stockton's been playing well there as well. You just want it to be a good game, and ultimately that's obviously what we're hoping for. But number 10, Texas. Number 5, Georgia, 7:30 on Saturday. Should be a good one. Lastly, our best bets of the weekend. We'll revisit, so we're running out of time here. So we'll do Purdy and Mac Jones probably on Monday. And, we'll get to break down how Purdy plays in that game against Arizona. And, hopefully he plays great and, you move on with him as your guy. But if he doesn't, might get a little dicey there. All right, best bets of the weekend. We do it every Friday. It's our final segment of the week. Got 5 plays. We're 4-1 last week. We're trending in the right direction. That certainly is positive. Looking for another winning week here this week. USC, Iowa. We talked about it during our college football preview last segment. USC, 7.5-point favorites against Iowa. I talked about it when we were doing the preview. If Iowa can make this an Iowa-style game, USC is going to be in trouble, right? I don't think they will. It's at USC, right? It's in SoCal, right? It's not like a crappy weather type of game. USC is going to be able to throw the ball, and Iowa's a team that doesn't give up many explosives, but Lemon, the wide receiver, he's a great player, and they're going to want to push the ball down the football field to him. Deep shot accuracy from Maeva in this game. If he's accurate down the field, USC wins, no problem. If he's not, they're in trouble. I'm banking on them. Again, this is a game that Lincoln Riley needs to win. We said it with the Michigan game for Lincoln Riley. You got to win. You got to win this game against Iowa. You got 2 losses. You're trying to make this team a national threat again. You've gotten a little bit better each year. I don't think you've made the right as drastic steps as everyone kind of hoped for. But I think this is a huge game for Lincoln Riley. He's got to win. It's at 3:30. It's at home. And look, if you score a bunch of points in this game, you're going to win, right? And I think you're going to cover the number at 7 as well. And I'm just banking on Lincoln Riley offensively, them being able to figure things out. Mayava to have, maybe the best game of his career here to this point, and ultimately winning this game at home. Lincoln Riley's got to do it. And I've got him doing it. I've got the Trojans -7 in this game. Shout out Willie J, by the way, for consulting on these picks. Also, we're going to bet on the Madrid game. Unfortunately, the Bengals, or unfortunately for Joe Burrow. I guess fortunately, because he wouldn't be playing if obviously he has the injury, but he really wanted to play in the Madrid game. Dolphins, Commanders, Miami 2.5-point favorites. I loved the Dolphins last week against the Bills, +9.5. But what they did Thursday against the Ravens, I couldn't really get that out of my head. So I didn't go with them last week. And obviously, they just flat out won the game outright. I like them this week. Obviously, no Jaden Daniels. The Commanders are kind of in shambles here at this point. An opportunity for both these teams to kind of get away because, you got a lot of noise regarding both these teams, right? The Commanders, obviously, went to the NFC Championship. They were looking to build off that this year. Yeah, their quarterback's been hurt, and anytime your quarterback's hurt, you're in deep trouble. That's been an issue. Dan Quinn taking over defensive play calling, right? That's not good. Dolphins, obviously, their struggles have been well documented. Huge win, though. Maybe a job-saving win for McDaniel. Well, he's got to back it up with a win against the Commanders. I'm going to take him -2.5. I still love the creativity of McDaniels offensively in the run game. Tua has to protect the football. He oftentimes does it early in the games, and then late he'll do something stupid. And, obviously, hopefully he doesn't do that. The Dolphins defense, they're, coming along a little bit, right? I mean, you held Josh Allen to, a handful of points in that game, which anytime you do that, that's awesome. So I think the Dolphins got a little bit of confidence there. I think they still have some belief in their head coach. I think they're going to play for him. Obviously, it's a Madrid game. All these players on both sides got to be really excited to play in this game. It's a morning game on Sunday. I got the Dolphins. I'll lay the 2.5. Miami -2.5. Packers. I've been in on the Packers all year. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to back off that pick here at this point, but I wouldn't say it looks great for the Green Bay Packers. They're going to the Giants, and the Packers are -7 in this game. I'm going to lay the 7, and I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers here in this game. When a coach gets fired, things go one of two ways. The team plays really, really well for the interim guy, and there's a new spark and a new energy to the team. Or the team plays even worse than they do for the interim guy than they did for the head coach. I'm banking on the latter. I don't see New York playing well in this game. Yeah, it's at home, but it's Jameis Winston playing quarterback and not Jackson Darts. And I like Jameis, pulling for Jameis, but he's going to throw the ball a couple of times to Green Bay. And, your first start back in the league, thrown into the fire against Micah Parsons, and that front for Green Bay is not good. So I don't think the Giants are going to score a ton of points in this game. Question is, are the Packers going to score a ton of points in this game? It's really hard for me to believe that their offense has been as bad as it has been against Philly and, of course, Carolina and Cleveland early in the year. Love's a good quarterback. He's making fine decisions. He's got to get rid of the ball maybe a little bit quicker. They've kind of got this receiver by committee thing going, which isn't great. Somebody needs to step up with Tucker Kraft down. Who's that going to be? I don't know yet, but I think they'll figure it out. I think Love will have a good game. This is a game that, as a franchise guy facing adversity, you need to go in there on the road and win. I think they do. I think they cover the number. Green Bay -7.5. Chiefs, I had people making fun of me. Oh, you got the Chiefs ranked above the Broncos in your power rankings. What are you doing? Well, Vegas agrees, says Kansas City is going to Denver, and they are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I think Chris Jones is going to play a huge factor in this game for Kansas City. Spags' defense is always solid. They're going to be solid again in this game. And what is Bo Nix in this Denver offense? Why are you optimistic that they're going to get things turned around? It's been ugly. And, the Denver Broncos defense is probably the best in the NFL, so I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to come down to a couple of plays in the fourth quarter. I'm a little nervous about the hook. I'll be completely honest with you, but I'm going to lay the 3.5 with the Kansas City Chiefs against the Denver Broncos. Mahomes flat out is going to make some plays when he needs to. Right, and he's not going to take many stupid sacks, which, who has more sacks than the Broncos this year? They're sacking people left and right. I think Mahomes will know how to deal with that. I think he'll be smart. I think he'll get rid of the ball and avoid those negative plays and ultimately capitalize when there's opportunities down the field. Surtain probably not going to play in this game. That's huge. for the Denver Broncos. He's the best corner in the National Football League. So, the Chiefs, I believe in them offensively. How can you not with Andy Reid and Mahomes? They've got some weapons. And if they can run the ball earlier in the game and open up some play-action stuff, Chiefs will win, and the Chiefs will cover. Lastly, Philadelphia Eagles at home against the Detroit Lions. Sunday Night Football should be a good game. I'm laying the 2.5 with the Philadelphia Eagles. Look, Jalen Hurts is playing great football, and nobody's talking about it right now. Everybody's just talking about A.J. Brown and how butthurt he is that he's not getting the football. The run game, they're struggling a little bit to run the football. They've got some guys banged up along the offensive line. Lane Johnson, he's banged up. That's not great. But this Philly defense is really, really good, and I don't think the Lions are just going to be able to go in there and score a bunch of points like they always do. I think they're going to have some issues there with that. Obviously, I expect Gibbs to run the ball well, and the Lions are always going to try to be a run-first type of team and then build off of that. But I think they're going to get slowed down a little bit in the run game, and they're going to force Jared Goff to really make some throws. And Jared Goff's a really good quarterback, but I think Jared Goff's going to make a mistake or two in this game, and that is going to be the difference. And Jalen Hurts is going to protect the football. They're going to control the clock in this game. They're at home, prime time. If you're the Eagles, you live for these kind of opportunities here. Prime time, huge game, at home. Quarterback's playing with a lot of confidence. I got the Eagles to cover -2.5. Like the favorites a lot this week. We liked the favorites a lot last week as well. And all 5 picks this week are going to be the favorites. We'll roll through them once again. USC -7 at home against Iowa. Dolphins -2.5 in Madrid against the Commanders. No Jaden Daniels. Packers -7 at the Giants. Chiefs -3.5 at Bo Nix, Sean Payton, and the Denver Broncos. And the Philadelphia Eagles at home -2.5 against the Detroit Lions. Our best bets of the weekend. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us throughout the duration of the week. As always, had some great guests on this week. We certainly appreciate them. We will have clips, obviously, from our shows go up on YouTube later today. And make sure you check those out. Give us a follow on social media. We got our Instagram page, by the way, up and running yesterday at The Stone Shield Show on Instagram. Check that out if you haven't done so already. Give me a follow, obviously, on Twitter at StoneShields_. And, of course, give Chatterbox Sports a follow there as well at CBox Sports for all the best Cincinnati sports coverage. Updates, they'll be up on our Twitter page. Clips from our shows, they're there as well. You don't want to miss any of that. Appreciate everyone, as always, for hanging out. We'll talk to you Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.